Good. In a word, good. In 2 words, not good.
From our point of view, there's a big release from being not able to do this for a long time, to come out on the stage and do that, and I think you can feel that to some extent from the audience reaction, that for a lot of people it's their first show after a long time.
Yeah, I think it's really evident that it was people's first show, and I think that was when it sort of hit home that we must have been one of the first bands to do a cross-border tour of Europe. So when we came to those first shows, and I'd always ask the question, put your hand up, in obviously the lingo of the
local
country, fluently.
He speaks 58 languages, this man.
Put your hand up if this is your first show in a long time, and practically the whole room puts their hand up.
I guess we never got to a point where we said we couldn't do it, but it was almost week by week, or every time we discussed it, things had changed. So the restrictions would change in one country, which meant we could do a show there. In another country, we'd still be looking at postponement, but it was all changing right up to the point at which we decided that we thought we could go ahead.
Yeah, well, some venues we didn't know would be open before we even set off.
That's right. Some of the restrictions changed after we left home.
Yeah.
So everything's still changing.
But in a good way.
In a good way. So that Bruce actually changed the restrictions in one show, didn't you?
Oh, I did. Yeah, so it was all seated, which isn't very rock and roll, and the restrictions had changed in the last sort of 3 days. So I just said, well, by the way, you know, it didn't have to be a seated show. You can stand if you like, and the whole room just went, stood up en masse, and then it changed the atmosphere slightly.
Then we played a song with complicated time signatures which they couldn't actually dance or clap to. So he picked the perfect song. Well, being with these
Well, yeah. Took the words, yeah.
If anything, there's other things have been more annoying. Things like Brexit. You know, that was more. It almost feels more of a challenge to us. But in terms of touring after so long away, it feels alright. In the depths of the pandemic, were you thinking, would live music ever return, or return in the form that we were used to? I remember being asked that question all the time. Is live music ever going to be the same again? And I think this tour has proven that it is going to be the same again. I think that the one thing that's happened is that things like streaming are now on lots of bands' radar when it comes to touring. So I think streaming is going to be much more prominent in the future, as we found out when we did ours.
I think there has been times when it was quite depressing and wondering how long it would take. I don't think I ever thought it wouldn't come back, but because of the nature of the pandemic and things going up and down, just when you thought things might be recovering, then things would take a bad turn again. So It did sometimes feel like, when will it? You know, when will we get to the point where
It was
we can
also
actually
relying on the venues staying afloat.
Yeah.
And the crews hanging around in the same vacation.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So it wasn't really a case of would live music return, it's have we still got places we can play? Have we still got crew that we can take with us?
Yeah, I mean, we had to cancel 4 shows on this tour because of restrictions.
Yeah, it was a bit annoying having to do that and reschedule. So it's not a typical tour.
In fact, we got more time off.
Which is why we are here now.
And the only thing we could think to do was to do this.
Yeah.
I think thankfully the people's thirst for live music has remained, probably more so than ever.
Yeah, it's been a really special atmosphere, it really has.
Next year we're going to do it all naked, standing in a pyramid. So, just in case you're thinking, should I come to this one or should I come to next year? They call it the tour. I'm just trying to think of catchy names.